Welcome back, everybody, to another fun episode of Paranormal Primetime. And yes, we're sorry we missed last week. I was fucking busy, didn't have time to watch TV. But we're making it up by being here this week, and we'll try not to miss anymore. I promise. I'll try. It's only 2 episodes. I should be able to do it. But myself and, of course, my famous co-host Malachi are back again to continue on with our journey into the Winchesters and their amazing adventures. But Scott, you want to start the first one? Or you want me to do it?
Well, it starts off in Lake Maniloc, Wisconsin, and this is a one-off episode, right?
Yep.
Um, Basically, people are drowning, and it starts off, normal, and then when people start drowning in bathtubs and sinks, kind of confirms Sam and Dean's point of it. Let me see what my first note is. Oh, they really tried to push the fact that Dean relates to the kid whose dad died. I thought
Yeah.
that was a little cheesy, but
It's it's.
doesn't
I
fit the
mean,
character later.
well, no, that's the funny thing is it kind of does fit him because in a lot of later episodes he does have relationships with like kids in a way. I mean, in like well, not that way, but in a way where like he actually does relate to the kids and is able to like it's a mentality thing. I think he's on a child's mentality to some degree. So
Yeah,
he can and it's ironic because he's not that type of person later on. Sam ends up being that type of person later on, but he's not that kind of person later on. Well, actually,
exactly. They're kind of like they're trying to foreshadow the fact that Dean saw his mom die and Sam didn't, so it affects Dean more.
I mean, well, everybody should know by now, and this is not a spoiler because in the first episode, like you literally see like Dean run into the room when his mom was on the ceiling. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's one of those things, but see, the first note I saw on this is the fact that Dean gets dissed by the sheriff's daughter at first, which is kind of like a thing throughout the series that Dean always like he tries to hit on all the hot chicks he sees, but he always gets dissed in the beginning until he proves himself and like becomes like the shining knight in armor.
Yeah, which
But
doesn't always
but
work out.
no, it doesn't always work out. But and I mean, yeah, I had a note too about it being the first glimpse of Dean talking about his mother, like about like because in the later seasons, that comes into a play in a whole different way, and it's freaking awesome. But I don't think you've
They're
even seen that
trying
yet. So
they're trying to set up plot line for later seasons. They just don't know if they're getting past the first season. So it's all hinty, right? They're not going full bore into the like dad mom storyline yet. That'll come season 2 for sure though. This is more of a one
hmm
off.
yeah,
And then you go.
uh, and I mean, it's kind of a typical. I didn't write this down to you. But thinking about it now, it's kind of a typical storyline they do where they go to a town and the town's like, well, there's no natural predators here that would do that. But
Yeah.
yet the townspeople want to be like, well, we don't know what it is then, but we're still gonna refuse your help, even though you might know more than we do about shit.
I did like the sync scene for like if we're going monster movie effects, like
Yeah,
2004, the sync scene was good. They don't show you a lot. I thought it was pretty good horror for 2024 or 2004. Sorry.
it is. It's good horror, and I mean, even the opening scene in the lake is good horror because it's reminiscent of Jaws. They do like the
Hmm.
underwater shots, like where you don't see anything, but it's supposed to be like you are looking at it from whatever's doing the killings perspective, and I think they really nail
Yeah,
that down. Like they paid homage to Jaws and all the other great movies like Placid and all the other sea attack movies.
without just dumping a bunch of crappy CGI effects into everything, which
Yeah, they could have. I mean,
Supernatural is guilty of. But I thought this
well,
episode was pretty good with it.
well, you have to. They can't get half this shit on actual footage. I mean, if they could, my job as a paranormal podcast would be a lot easier. But it's no. I mean, it's not. But it was a first. It was a first for the villain in the episode. I mean, this is a villain that's going to get replayed over and over again because it's kind of the basis of the show. But
Do you
it's a
want to tell them what the villain is? Because I have a note about the villain.
I mean, it's a revengeful spirit, which there's a common. It's one of the common monsters in Supernatural in the coming seasons. Is a revengeful spirits who, but this is the first one you actually get to see them face. Even though they have experience with it before, they knew exactly what it was once they had enough clues. But they kind of
Yeah,
came
and
around to
then
it kind of slow.
they did come around to it slow, but they find out that the vengeful spirit. I mean, this whole series is just spoilers, right? If you haven't seen it, stop watching.
It's been
Um,
it's been 20 fucking years. If they haven't seen it by now, then they're missing out on shit that they should have. That somebody should have told them to watch a long time ago. I know very
but
few people who haven't seen Supernatural, at least to some degree.
so in supernatural lore, a lot of regular lore, like the ghost has to be connected to something, right? We find out a little later in the episode that it's connected to the actual lake, and that's the water that everybody's using to their drinking water, their tap water, basically everything, right? So they attack that guy in the sink. That's when they find it out, and then Dean says because they pretend to be EPA agents, and the cop ends up telling them that they're going to drain the lake. And I thought that was a screw up, especially for later lore, because Dean or Sam says the ghost is trying to up his body count because they're draining the lake. But like every other ghost spirit throughout the season, it's more of like a replay. So how the hell does this ghost know to up its body count because they're draining the
Well,
lake?
yeah, and I mean, and the ghost itself has a very grudge look to it. Has a very like Japanese
Oh
horror
yeah,
look to it. So
I got that.
that's
That was a note too. That was real good.
yeah, it was. I mean, and I will say about the sink scene and the bathtub scene are very reminiscent, like they're paying homage to it
Hmm.
because that is Pennywise behavior 100%. So I felt like they're paying homage to it a little bit with those scenes because the water rising and the whoever the victim is getting pulled down the drains, like that's very reminiscent of it. So I kind of had that feeling going on as I was watching it, like I was watching it again, especially the
But
2017 one,
you're
even though that
right.
came later.
When I think it's the cop sees the ghost for the first time, and the kid comes out and the water's up to his nose, and it looks
Yeah,
exactly like the kid from The Grudge, and that would have been around
yeah,
the same damn time too.
yeah. They're definitely they paid a lot of homage to different horror movies in this episode. They really did, and I will say in that final scene, it's not even a note so much as like a funny notice that the time before cell phones where you could jump in water fully clothed and not worry about it, and it just nowadays you have to like empty your pockets before you jump into water, but like or just completely strip your pants off. But I mean, the fact that they could jump in back then fully clothed and not have to worry about shit, like simpler times, simpler times.
Well, the boat scene too. The boat scene was pretty dope.
Yeah, that was pretty badass. When the boat gets shot backwards, that's pretty badass. I mean,
Yeah,
they did. They had some good imagery in this one, and
the cut
I don't know. I
scene
mean,
from like it does look a little cheesy at first with the boat, but I think they cut just enough where that boat flew back and then hit the water and the water erupts and it looks pretty good for 2004 on a CW TV show.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. This was at the precipice of like paranormal TV shows becoming a thing, really. So I think CW kind of had their finger on the trigger with that one. They knew the way the world was going, and they wanted to. They had high hopes this show would make it. They really wanted this show to make it. I think so. CW is very fast to cancel shows if they want to cancel shows. Don't they are very fast to do that. So I've had a lot of shows I freaking love get canceled after the first season. So it's just the way they do things at that channel, or at least they used to. I haven't watched it in years. No cable anymore, but
Yeah, I
it's
don't
just
have cable either.
and their app's not reliable. So and I think you have to
Yeah,
have cable to even use their app, but.
Yeah, I think that's how it works. The last time I tried to use one of those, you had to like log in with your Comcast account or something.
Which I mean, I even tried using the family members, and like they could tell you a different address, so they're like, "Nope, not happening."
Yeah.
But
Another
and
thing I got talking shit about this episode though is like the next morning, right after they save the day, Lucas and Lucas's mom meet up with Sam and Dean, and like their dad was just killed, and they're all smiles and giddy and happy. It's, I know you got to
well,
speed the dialogue, but yeah, that they could have made the kid and the mom look a little more somber.
I I mean, I don't know. I think they also realized that the father was the reason all this is happening, and that he sacrificed himself for a reason. But
Yeah,
because I
I
mean,
think
it was a self-sacrifice moment. It's not like Sam and Dean didn't even have to find the body and salt and burn it and all that stuff. Like it was just like the sheriff took care of it himself. Like he just took care of the monster himself in a way.
and that was another one. Like, what the hell? That was the sheriff of the town, right? Like,
Hmm.
how the hell do you explain the sheriff disappearing?
Well, when you got a good 10 other disappearances in the last like 4 or 5 years, then you just kind of chalk it up to that as well. Like, oh, he was just the last one in that long line of disappearances, and then that serial killer must have moved on or something. But who knows? I mean, it's a small town. I don't think in small towns they ask questions too much. But at least
Yeah,
in at least in those deep wooded small towns like that. But I don't know. I mean, and being in Wisconsin, it's in Dogman territory too. They could have went in a whole different direction with this episode if they wanted to. But I don't think it was a well known fact at that time, so they just didn't know enough to go into that.
yeah. I think
But
like we were talking about last time, Supernatural was probably a big like encyclopedia for people who didn't really know too much about. I mean, that's where I learned most of the paranormal shit I know. You know.
I mean, I watched it years. I started watching it until like 2012 ish, but I definitely learned a lot of supernatural stuff from Supernatural that compared to there wasn't even like paranormal podcasts out really yet besides like
Yeah.
the classics, and
Not
I didn't
even
know enough
in.
to listen.
We started
Well,
watching in 2004, and like there weren't podcasts. So
I mean, Coast to Coast AM was always there,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
and
Okay.
he and,
AM
and he loved
radio.
he loved yeah, he loved his paranormal topics, but uh forget his name at the moment, but yeah, I mean, Art Bell, yeah, Art Bell, like he
Art
loved his
Bell,
paranormal
yeah.
topic. Yeah, he loved his paranormal topic. So I mean, he was kind of like, in a way, the original paranormal podcaster, but it wasn't the world. It is what the world is nowadays, where there's 5,000 paranormal podcasts to compete against. Unfortunately,
Well, Art
I wish
Bell
they.
still, he's still. You can listen to some of those episodes to this day.
There's a company that re-released everything he did as a podcast,
Hmm.
so you can listen to it all. I forget the name, but you gotta find it. Just Google it. I'm sure it'll pop up. But they were classics, and a lot of people, all the people that came on the show were considered nuts back then too by most because paranormal wasn't a thing yet. It was just crazy people talking about I saw a Bigfoot or I have a ghost in my house, and like most people would just laugh and not believe them. I know my parents would have. My parents
Well, I
didn't believe in
know
this shit.
a lot of the people doing like this UFO research on YouTube and stuff. They'll pull from Art Bell episodes and like some disclosure thing comes out, and it's like this nut job back in '92 said the same thing.
Yep, because
So
I mean I think a lot of those people calling in were actually like people in the government who wanted to get it out there, but this is the only way they could do it, like anonymously without really being known. So
yeah,
I don't know. But yeah, that I mean, the first episode 3 was 100% a filler episode. It was just, it wasn't even a monster of the week. I wouldn't say it was just a filler episode. I mean, I don't consider the ghosts or the villains of the next episode to be really monsters of the week. They're just kind of filler episodes. And
and it like
well,
standalone, you could watch just that episode and it
you could,
be a good episode. Kill
which is
40
why,
minutes.
which is what they want for when eventually it would be on TNT and on CW on repeats, and they could just people could just tune in and watch like an episode like that. I mean, same thing they did with all the other shows, similar shows like X Files, where they could just There's certain episodes you can just watch and you don't need to know any of this bigger storyline. It's just, oh, they're fighting a spirit. Okay, this is cool. Like,
By season 3, that starts dying off, and there's too much
there's
storyline
oh,
where like
that's
you
when
you have to know the whole story.
that's when the true Monster of the Week episodes really come into play, because they still have the Monster of the Week episodes every 5-6 episodes where you could just tune in and watch it. And there's little to no storyline in those ones. It's still just a monster they're hunting, which is the best.
And that
They're the best episodes. I like those the best. But
those start dying off. I like season 3, and I'm telling you, by season 7, this thing is like just a soap opera. But we'll get there. I think it takes
I
6 years. We'll get there.
I don't think it is, because they still have like the random, oh, it's a vampire nest episode or it's a werewolf episode. Like they still have the random episodes where it's different creatures they just have to kill, and there's very little to do with the storyline besides this is just a town they're passing through or something. But
Yeah, it's mentioned a lot
or
more for sure.
or actually, or there's a theme. There's a ongoing theme that starts in episode 4. So, unless you got anything more to add to episode 3, I think we could jump to episode 4.
No, yeah, 4 was a good one.
Yeah, episode 4, folks. Actually, I'm sorry. Episode 3 was called Dead in the Water, for those we didn't say it. But episode 4 is called Phantom Traveler, which is funny because the idea of a Phantom Traveler has been around for decades now, or maybe even a century at this point, since travel became a thing, really. I mean, the idea of a Phantom Traveler that causes mischief and no one can identify what the hell's going on. It happens in real life all the time. But this we can't really talk about this episode without embracing what the villain is pretty fast, because it's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's an airplane centric episode, folks, and it's the first demon episode. It's the first real demon episode. I mean, I guess you could say the pilot kind of was because of the beginning, but they really don't go into it too much. So this is the first real demon episode, and
Well, they
it's
go into it. What did you think? Tell them how the demon comes in.
well, basically they show a black dust coming out of the vents above a gateway to a gate to a plane. And basically this guy gets on the plane and in the middle of the flight, he decides to go open the door to the back to the plane, and in the process just makes the plane crash and kills most of the people in it. But you see his eyes flash black right when he looks back before he opens the door. And on this show, when their eyes flash black, that means 100% demon. And it's or other colors as well, as I'll get to eventually. But as of
Yeah.
right now, black is the most common form of demon. And
I liked the way the smoke came into the body because like later seasons it's basically like bam right into you, but this one had that kind of eerie floated down and around and went into him. I thought the
yeah,
smoke on this one was good.
it's the original design before they started like the common thread of how they have demon smoke appear, which I mean, I think they actually started going by more eyewitness testimonies on things they did. So they would have anybody who was really into the paranormal, who actually was even paranormal investigators at that point, would actually consider the show legit. Because Kripke cares about details. He always has. Eric Kripke has always cared about details when he makes shows. So, but
Yeah.
and oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say like the plane scene was good. It was kind of cool that like Dean's afraid to fly.
Yeah, that doesn't come into that. That doesn't come
he,
into.
he tells
Yeah,
Sam, "Why do you think I drive everywhere?"
I mean, and it's true. Why do you? It kind of like, why does he drive everywhere? Like when they have a case across the country, they usually could fly and be there in hours instead of days. But it's
And they
just
never leave the country either. That's another great thing.
they actually do at one point, but that it's not. It's only for an episode or two, but they do leave the country at one point. But yeah, I mean, I will say I love that this episode brought in the line when Dean says, "This isn't our usual gig. We don't do demons."
Hmm.
But that's such. hilariousness once you see the rest of the show, because that becomes like the main focus of the show for 7, 8 seasons. So
Yeah, they just
I
start
love,
fist fighting demons. Like,
hmm I love that. Yeah, and now I'll get to that. I'll get to that at the end of the episode, but I got commentary on that. But and I will say I love that they threw biblical numerology into this. Like I love that they threw that
hmm
into it as a way to discover what was going on, because it's a biblical numerology is a well believed numerology in general is a well believed thing among light workers, psychics, mediums, all those different occupations in the light world. They believe in numerology heavily. I've had many guests who talk about it, and synchronization and numerology go hand in hand. So seeing a certain time on the clock every time you look at a clock, 11, 11, 22, 33, the angel numbers, the double numbers, like people see them everywhere when they a lot of people when they see those everywhere believe something's going on, that they're trying to that something's giving them a sign or something. It's always hard to figure out, but you kind of have to let it play out in the end.
You're getting all Eddie Bravo on us here.
Yeah, I mean,
So this
yeah.
this is the first time though they hit the big times, where they're not pretending to be EPA or the fucking pet police. They get Homeland Security badges and suits.
hmm
That's
and
a
the
big pivotal moment.
and I love when Dean walks out of the freaking suit shop and he's like, "I look like a blues brother." Like that made me laugh my ass off. And this is also there's another first and stuff that we kind of glossed over. This is the first time that they have a return customer, that they have someone that they helped before come back, call them and say, "Hey, something's going on. I need your help." Which it happens a lot throughout the show. So they have a lot of people that come back on again.
So we finally realized they're not just like a couple of delusional schizophrenics out there fighting make believe. There's a third party witness.
Yep, and they actually helped him with a poltergeist off air before the first time they met him. So, well, John and Dean did, which that's the other thing is that they find out that Sam finds out finally that his father has actually been talking about how proud he is of him for going to college. Like
hmm
even though he never felt that John felt that way. Like he always felt like John thought he was a failure for not hunting.
Well, they reference once they find out the demon goes down. They listen to a recording where it says no survivors, and then there's
Yes.
another plane crash, and that's where they get this idea that the plane is possessed. And they bring up Flight 401. I don't know if you looked into that,
I
but it was
didn't meant to. I meant to. I totally forgot to look into it though, because I had a feeling that was a famous missing flight.
yeah. I went and looked into that. It's Eastern Airlines Flight 401. It happened in 1972, and there are several books written on the premise of like a ghost took the plane over and all that stuff. But there is actually one of the survivors of the flight. There's an interview of her on YouTube, Beverly Raposa, and shouldn't talk about hauntings or anything. So I don't know where the haunting stuff came from. I couldn't figure out if they did reuse parts of that plane for other planes that had crashed. So I don't.
Yeah,
I haven't read
I
any of the
don't,
books either.
I don't think that's something they would really put out publicly unless they had to.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one of those things they wouldn't put out like publicly because they don't want people to think like, oh, they're using damaged parts on a plane. But it's and
Beverly Raposa's uh, interview, though, like her talking about the plane crash, it's like they have a 4 minute clip up there. It is worth just hearing what this lady who survived a plane crash went through. So Beverly Raposa, Flight 401. Type that into YouTube.
yeah, I was being that this was 2004. I was a little surprised there wasn't like anything mentioned about 9/11 in it, because of
Yeah,
it being 3 years later. Like I figured like maybe they would try to say that was demons too, but
that was
I mean,
that was still touchy, and I thought about that too. Like when they're walking around the airport and doing all this shady shit, calling people. Like in 2004, ain't happening. So
You couldn't be at an airport in 2004 unless you had a fucking ticket and were like could prove you were about to go on a plane and that you were legit. And even then, you still got pulled in the back room sometimes to get a little hand up your backside. But
Yeah, that was a little unbelievable.
the TSA took nothing less than serious back then. But I remember
Hmm.
traveling and I remember traveling back and forth to Florida after those years. Like, oh, it was you were in security for a long time. But
I haven't
and yeah,
flown since pre 9/11.
oh
It's
Jesus.
been yeah, it's been quite a long time since I've flown
Oh,
on a plane.
I've flown at least a dozen times since 9/11, and it's most of the flying in my life's been done after 9/11 for God's sake, and I mean, it's calmed down a lot now. Now you just go through security fast and get to your gate. Like they're not as I think by like 2010 it really died down the security measures they were doing because it was just like okay, they're not gonna try this again. They realize we're onto them for this shit, and they're not gonna try this shit again because it was just the fact they got away with it once was just well, okay, we're not gonna go into that because we'll go down a
Well,
wormhole.
yeah. I mean, now we're
We'll
going
be
to a different. We're talking about
yeah.
dancing people and art students, and you
Yeah,
know,
that's a wormhole we don't
2.7
need to go down on
trillion
this show.
missing.
But I will say, I didn't even think about this episode being post 9/11 at the time I wrote this note, but now it makes even more sense. This note I wrote because there's no way you can bring that much holy water on a plane without getting stopped and having to drink, and you'd have to drink it, and or toss it. Like they wouldn't let you bring that much of any kind of water on a plane, let alone even if you said, "Oh, it's holy water," they would look at you like you're fucking insane. You wouldn't be getting a fucking hand up your backside in the security room. But it's no. I mean, I totally forgot it was after 9/11 when I wrote that note. But I wrote any more. But I'm like, even back then, in 2004, you couldn't bring that much holy water on a plane. Like they would have stopped you and like made you get rid of some of it at least.
And that was the first time holy water's used, right?
Yeah, because well, I mean, it's the first villain that we see him face on TV that they need to. But Dean obviously had to use it before because he had it in his trunk and he was good to go with it.
Do
So
you
he
know
knows to
what
use
the
it.
other first for the show is?
The first exorcism.
Well, that too, yeah, I guess. But we get to see Dean's handmade EMF Walkman detector.
Yeah, true. I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's Dean and his gadgets. It becomes a thing until like later seasons when they actually have a
Get
way
the
to get
good
all the
shit.
gadgets they need. Yeah,
Yeah. The no, that was one question I had and I didn't remember. Does EMF work for demons in later episodes, or is that
I
just strictly a ghost thing?
I mean I think in real life it's only for ghosts. I don't know if demons. Well, actually no, demons demons. I mean they let off a certain frequency because of the sulfur and all that. They let off a certain frequency that would show up on an EMF, and
Okay. Yeah, I didn't
they're
know how
not
they were doing that.
and they're not this dimension supposedly. So that would definitely set off the EMF a little bit at least. Different frequencies completely. But I don't know. That'd be a question for a paranormal investigator, which I am not one by any means. So I just like to talk about this shit. But and well, that that yeah, I mean they. And you love that creepy phone call Dean makes to the freaking stewardess. They're trying to get to like knock on the plane.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It shows
3 years after 9/11.
it shows Dean's creepy side a little bit, and it's freaking hilarious whenever he gets that. He puts that side on whenever he's trying to fucking lie to somebody, and it's creepy as shit, and it's funny as hell. It's like, but he's smooth about it. Like when she catches him, and she's like, "Are you so and so's friend?" And he's like, "Listen, he's just going through a lot." Like he just switches off to another lie completely without blinking, and it's just perfect. It's perfect. Like I freaking love it.
Well, it still doesn't work, so they have to get on the damn plane. I would not get on the fucking plane. I
What
mean, they would have been
which
better off doing a bomb threat or something.
which is when Dean's fear of flying truly comes in, because
Uh-huh.
that's when he's like, Sam, I don't like flying, and it's funny like when he gets
And,
on board and and like and Sam has to tell him like, calm down, or you can let yourself get possessed by a demon if you're being this emotional. So I
and
mean
he's
it's
like
funny.
humming Metallica.
Are you humming Metallica? It calms me down, but which
Then they fist fight the demon.
I couldn't tell what song he was humming. I was trying to tell what song he was humming. I even rewinded it a couple times. I couldn't tell.
I couldn't either. Yeah, I remember the
But
quote.
yeah. And I mean, yeah, and then that this leads to the epic final fight with the demon as he's about to, or as he as he is trying to hurt the stewardess, basically. Well, because the demon goes into the co-pilot. We should say that the demon goes into the co-pilot, and they talk the stewardess into believing them and going and getting him out of the cockpit into the back of the plane so they can confront him. Which,
After they think it is the stewardess.
oh yeah, but the, the whole yeah, I love when he goes back there and he's like Christo, and she's like what? Like it's just like it's, but I mean it's funny and which post 9/11, there's no way in hell a co-pilot's coming out of the freaking cockpit that easy. No way, no way.
Absolutely. Not even for a stewardess.
No, I mean they won't open that door unless they have a real life emergency that they need to be the present for.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
But
even think any emergency, to be honest with you. Didn't they have
honestly,
like trained security up on every plane at that time? Or
at that time, yes. I
I don't
mean,
know. I haven't been.
oh, they have air marshals. They have air marshals undercover on a lot of planes now. Even to this day, the air marshals just jump on planes and fly like in regular people clothes, and if they need to pull out their gun and deal with somebody, they will. But they
Yeah.
even to this day they still do that. But and my biggest problem though, okay, I have two big problems actually with the end fight. One, Dean, this can't be the first demon that Dean ever fought. And he's getting his ass whooped left and right, and like Sam has to jump in and stop doing the exorcism and actually help him. Like, and that changes in the future. Like in the future, they collect demon ass like every day and fucking kill it. But it's just it's funny seeing them get their ass kicked so bad after like what they become.
But
So
that's what I'm saying. That's where like the story arc for me kind of started getting ruined because we went from like demons just being able to Obi-Wan Kenobi you on the wall and you not do anything to like Sam and Dean fist fighting 20 demons, you know?
well, there are different levels of demons. I think that's why I play it up to. But I and this is my biggest thing though. This is my biggest grievance about the whole final fight. You didn't even need to know who the fuck the demon was in. Get on the damn loudspeaker the stewardess uses, because they had those in place in 2004. Get the damn loudspeaker and do the exorcism right. You'd
Well,
see
yeah,
whoever
because
the fucking.
well, and they had to do it 40 minutes into the flight. So if you would have done that minute 15, like the demon needed to use the numerology. It would have tried again. It wouldn't like it had to be 40 minutes.
Yeah, but I mean, if they did the loudspeaker thing, it would have fucking. Or even if they just got in the loudspeaker and said Christo, like, to fucking make and see who reacts, they would have seen right away, okay, nobody in the cockpit, nobody in the rest of the plane is fucking acting weird because of it. They're just all looking around like, why is this guy saying Christo into a loudspeaker? So it must be one of the pilots. Like they would have figured it out like within 10 minutes, and they could have easily had more time to fuck with it. But because where the hell's the demon gonna go? He's on a plane. I mean, as far as I know, demons can't just go through walls like that, and there's no
I
vents
think
on
he could have gotten
planes.
out through something.
So maybe he went down to baggage claim down to
But
the luggage hold and something. I don't know, but it's possible,
he
I guess.
didn't
But
jump out because in this exorcism, right, they did something where they had to keep the guy's mouth taped shut because
well, I think they
he
did.
was able to jump or some shit.
I think they did that just to keep him from making noise, so everybody else on the plane didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, it's I like I said, I watched this one last week, so I'm a little
I mean,
fuzzy on the.
they didn't give a reason for it. They just literally stuck a piece of duct tape over his mouth, and I think my first instinct was, oh, they're trying to keep him quiet so it doesn't disturb the rest of the people on the plane, so they don't think like that they're terrorists or something, which would be very post 9/11 your mindset. So, I mean, that's probably why they did it. It's just keep him quiet because I'm pretty sure demons can get out through other orifices that have holes. So just saying. But if
I
they have
think
to,
they had to do two separate or three separate prayers for this one. I
they
don't.
had they had to do two separate ones. The first one gets the demon out of the body, and the second one sends it back to hell.
Okay, there we go.
Which it's funny knowing what they become. to have to see Sam reading it out of a book when in the future he just has it fucking memorized by that, like in the future. Like he can do it without looking at a damn book. He just knows the freaking prayers to get it done. Like, because it becomes a regular occurrence for him to have to do it.
And they got the tattoos. So they, well, spoiler. Shut up, Scott.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
we're
wasn't
done.
really thinking about that just yet. But yeah, folks, we talked about season 1, episode 3 and 4. Come back next week. Hear us talk about episodes 5 and 6. I don't know what they are off the top of my head. I saw the title of the 5th one, but I totally been blanking on it right now. But we'll be as surprised as you are on what they are. There's a lot of firsts to come in this show still, so we're
And
not.
we're gone. I'm starting a watch party on Discord, so my son will be setting that up. Anybody that wants to watch the seasons as I watch them, we'll get that going.
Yeah, I mean, this conversation might be more meaningful to you if you see it first, honestly, and then you could chime in the comments with if you got anything to say in the comments. Be our guest. We love to hear some funny funny comments on shit Dean and Sam do, or some things we miss. Even we miss things. Probably we're busy adult men. We miss things. Trying to watch a 45-minute show with a baby is not hard. It's not easy. Trust me, it's not easy. So I had to pause multiple times to get her to stop crying. So
And if you
that's
haven't
ridiculous.
watched, stop listening.
Mm,
That's the end.
but
My
we
end
should.
note.
But you should want to watch based on our listening to us. But we'll be back next week for more Paranormal Prime Time. We out.
Take it easy.